Hello everyone, and welcome once again to the Temple Institute Parashat class. My name is Gedalia Meyer, and I'm podcasting from Ma'ale Adumim in Israel. We live in strange times. Perhaps people have always lived in strange times, but nevertheless, we are living in strange times. Things are changing faster than anyone can keep track of, no matter how hard they try to stay ahead of the curve. There is simply no way to keep abreast of the latest trends and technologies, to say nothing of the ever-changing notions of who we are and what we are supposed to be in our world. Social media has unquestionably played an outsized role in this impossible situation, but that is more of a sign of the times than a cause. We did this to ourselves. Sometimes it seems like good old-fashioned virtue has gone out the window, like the typewriter or the floppy drive. We really don't know if in the good old days it was any different, but we sure like to think that it was. It is probably a safe bet that everyone longs in one way or another for those simpler times when being a good person meant being a good person. But like everything else in our perpetually changing and impossible to keep up with world, this also probably is a victim of the times. If we want to look for virtue, we are going to have to look off the currently beaten path. This week's Parsha is called Chayei Sara. That complex-sounding phrase means the life of Sarah, ironically in reference to Sarah's death, which takes place at the beginning of the Parsha. Abraham has to immediately deal with her burial, which happens in a cave in the region around the ancient and modern city of Haran, south of Jerusalem. After this is taken care of, almost the entire rest of the Parsha deals with one subject: the search for a wife for Isaac, the son of Abraham. For this, Abraham entrusts his family servant Eliezer to head back to the old country in the region of Mesopotamia to find a wife for his son amongst his old family. The instructions are simple and straightforward. Eliezer is to travel there, find a proper wife, and bring her back to the land of Canaan. He is explicitly told to find a wife only from the family of Abraham, and under no circumstances to arrange that Isaac leave to live with his wife elsewhere. With these instructions, Eliezer sets out. After what seems like an uneventful journey, he makes it to what turns out to be the very town where Abraham's old relatives live. Upon realizing this, he breaks into a very biblical version of prayer. While this does not seem entirely out of place under the circumstances, it does happen to be the very first example of classic prayer in the Bible. It's not somebody calling out in the name of God, or bargaining with God for children or to save a city, or even struggling with the stark reality of dying of thirst in the desert. It's just a person with a simple problem, hoping for divine assistance to sort things out. The way the Torah states this prayer is pretty fascinating. He is stopped by a well, that classic biblical location, to water his camels. It was the time when the town women came out to draw water. Here's the actual quote of the prayer. Hashem, the God of my master Abraham, let it happen before me today and do kindness with my master Abraham. Look, I am standing by the well of water, and the girls of the city are coming out to draw water. It should be that the girl of whom I request that she give me her jug, and I drink, and then she says, quote, drink, and also I will water your camels. That will be the one who you have proven to be for your servant Isaac, and I will know through her that you have done kindness with my master. Following this passionate prayer, everything seems to happen at once. Before he even finishes praying, Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, the nephew of Abraham, heads to the well to draw water. She did everything he had prayed for as if on cue. Upon greeting her, he requested water. She gave him and told him without provocation that she would also water his camels. She rushed to perform this laborious task, and not stopping until she would complete all that she had promised. Meanwhile, Eliezer was sitting back and watching all this. The Torah states that he was somewhat baffled by it all, being amazed at what he was seeing. But then it says that he was silent. This is a quote, silent to know if God had made his path successful or not. Apparently, he still wasn't sure if she was the proper wife for Isaac. presumably because he had no way of knowing if she was of the proper family. The next verse throws all this for a loop. It states, quote, "And when she finished watering the camels, the man took a gold ring that weighed a beka," which is some sort of metal weight, "and 2 gold bracelets weighing 10 pieces of gold, and placed them on her hands." This was apparently a gift in anticipation of asking for her hand in marriage for Isaac. He then asked her whose daughter she was, and if there was a place for him to stay in her father's house. She answered that she was the daughter of Bethuel, who was the nephew of Abraham, and that there was a place for him to stay with them and plenty of food for the camels. Then, quote, "the man bowed and prostrated himself to God." He apparently realized that this meeting was in some way ordained from heaven and that he was led to her by no less than God. There is a puzzling thing in this story. The Torah states that he was still wondering if the match was proper, even though he had already seen that she had done everything he had prayed for. The single missing piece was knowing her lineage. But before asking her lineage, he gave her the marriage gifts. It was only after giving that jewelry that he asked her about her lineage. When she told him, he was, of course, thrilled and grateful. But why did he give those rings and jewelry before ascertaining if she was from the proper family? This is a pretty tough one to answer. There is nothing in the Torah in between the verse describing that he was, quote, silent to know if God had made his way successful or not, and him giving her the jewelry. Nothing, that is, except the few words describing her finishing the task of watering the camels. But this he had already seen almost to completion. Nothing was added to undo whatever doubts he had other than her wrapping things up. So what relieved him of his doubts if he still didn't know her family lineage? There is a possible answer to this question. While it is true that he still didn't know her lineage, he did see something that perhaps was more important even than that lineage. He saw her complete the arduous task of watering the camels, the task that she promised she would do. This was not a mere wrap-up of the job. This was taking it to its completion and not telling this lazy guy in front of her who was sitting around this whole time and letting a girl do the dirty work to go water his own camels. She said she would do it, and she did it. This alone is pretty remarkable, by either today's standards or by biblical standards. People just don't do this kind of thing. They are all too eager to just give up and let the other person deal with their own problems. But this was not what Rebekah did. She made a promise and she stuck with it. So why did Eliezer give her that jewelry? Because this fact, he decided, was more important than all the lineage in the world. He was so sure that he was correct in the result of his experiment that he booked the deal before he knew for sure that it met all the terms. This was good old-fashioned kindness, the kind the Bible pushes but is all too rare even there, that was shining through in this girl. There was simply no chance that she would not be a proper wife for Isaac if this was who she was. There are some things in life that reflect the true person more than any ID card could possibly match. Unlimited and unabashed kindness is one of them. There is an irony about all this that emerges later on in the story. When Eliezer is taken to meet Rebekah's family, who themselves are somewhat shady characters, he recounts the incident at the well to them. In his retelling, he does not follow the details exactly as they happened. He specifically says that he first asked her about the family lineage before he gave her the jewelry. This is an obvious inconsistency in the Torah itself. Why does it say it happened one way at first, and then he tells a different way later on? The answer to this question is quite obvious. He was covering his tracks. He did not want her relatives to know that he had committed a great blunder in how he arranged the deal. He did not want them to think he had made the agreement without first getting all the details down. So he switched the order of things to make himself not look foolish. Was this a cover-up on his part? Or was it because he knew that they would never understand the true reason of why he gave her the jewelry without knowing who she was? This is unclear in the text. But based on the shady nature of those relatives, it would seem that the real reason was that he realized only certain people can understand the greatness of a pure and unblemished act of kindness. For some who are so tainted by the selfishness of most of life that they cannot imagine someone who is not, such acts simply do not exist. But the truth is, this is not the case. Rebekah is proof. It is not every day that we witness such an act. It is only at select moments that we ourselves are given the opportunity to participate in such an act. It is, of course, even rarer that we rise to the moment and succeed. But those moments, whether they come from ourselves or we witnessed it through others, are moments to be treasured above all others. They are the diamonds in our lives, the shining rays of light that enable us to go on when life gets buried in sameness. To see another person rise to the moment in this way is to see that person worthy of praise of biblical proportions. To see it in ourselves is to truly be alive, to find purpose and meaning in existence. Things change fast, too fast for us to keep up with. We don't know what will be in tomorrow and if we will be able to accede to its demands. But there are some things in life that are permanent. Things that will always be there no matter what is trending on social media. Among them is the need, the desire, and the will for unblemished kindness. It is what makes the world go round and has done so since the times of the Bible. No matter what anybody says or posts, there is nothing that can detract from a true act of kindness. It is one of the only constants in our ever-changing world. It is the anchor that allows us to know where we stand with others and with ourselves. Shabbat Shalom.